Rob, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, history in tech, in open source, as much as you want people to know about you?
I'd be happy to. My name is Rob Hirschfeld. I'm CEO and co-founder of RackN, which is a company that has its roots all the way back in some early OpenStack adjacent technology. So I know we're going to dive into that, and we'll talk about that. My career in IT and infrastructure goes back, 25 years now, where I was the co-founder of a early cloud startup doing virtualization in cloud back in the VMware ESX beta days before they released the product, and have been working steadily in that part of the the ecosystem for a long time since. DevOps, infrastructure as code, automation. I took a stint. I served, it was, I think, 5 years on the OpenStack board, and led some really important initiatives for the OpenStack Foundation back when it was the OpenStack Foundation. I think I was one of the advocates actually for the Open Infra name change, coming back into it in the early days when some of the the Open Infra groups were doing the edge work too. So I've been really deeply involved in the infrastructure side of open source for quite some time. I have some interesting stories, and I know we'll be talking through some of that specific history. I do. There was one time when the first time I remember anything about open source at all, though. This was in my first startup, and we were at a software convention in San Diego, at the Corona. I think it's the Corona, that old that classic hotel out on the island. And there was a software vendor convention, and these crazy startup people showed up, all wearing red hats, red fedoras. They had just gotten some money, and they were talking about this thing called Linux that nobody understood, but they were so excited about what they were doing. And the red hats were very distinctive. The red fedoras were very distinctive. And so it's funny going back. I always, they made such an impression at that show, just by their energy, what they were talking about, and the red hat. That I still have this very crystallized mind, even though it took me another 7 or 8 years to figure out what they were actually selling at that show. But it's one of those things where you really, sometimes the energy and enthusiasm for how open source is one of the things that's very distinctive in how these communities get formed and how people work together. But that's my earliest open source memory, if you will.
Was that like late 90s? When was that?
It was
Mid-90s?
No, it was 2000.
Okay.
I think it was in between. It was pre September 11th in that time frame.
And in that next, you said 7 or 8 years to figure it out. Did you have any further interactions with open source? And do you remember what led from that first memory towards figuring it out and then actually thinking that, oh, maybe this is something that I actually want to do something with or get involved in?
It's it's a great question, because the chain is funny. At the time, things were proprietary. It was Unix, not Linux. It wasn't clear, that Linux would be popular or work at all. And we were doing Windows development work. And one of the things that was interesting, but I wasn't that involved in, was Java, which had sort of some of the early open source community formation around what those pieces are. And then, we would use open source tools and products. A lot of it was more shareware. Nobody was worried about the source code and sharing source code at the time. It was much more of a SourceForge. You go download stuff from, shareware pieces. You didn't really think about how things were built, and what the collaboration meant for that. And I think that's what most people's experience has been, at least until, maybe a decade ago, was, just taking things off the internet and using them. They didn't worry too much about anything collaborative. I got interested in the collaborative aspect out of my experience at Dell, the pre-OpenStack formation. The team I was on at Dell was charged with bringing cloud and data products to market. And we brought 10 different products to market in a year. It was a crazy year. And what would happen is when we would do that, it almost always triggered our partner to get bought, sell, change, right? We had a lot of trouble with, our involvement literally made it harder for us to collaborate with those partners. And so either they would go off market because we were involved with them, or they would pat us on the head and say, you people at Dell don't understand anything about software. Just sell some servers and we'll fix it. And we were a software team. And at some point you recognize it doesn't matter what your expertise is, you walk in with the people you walk in with. But what happened is with these 10 solutions is we would try to help operationalize the technology, and the vendors would not want to listen to us because they didn't think we had anything to offer there. Or the technology would get sold out from under us. And we had sort of these dual problems of not being able to have influence and not being able to have longevity. And when OpenStack showed up, it created a unique opportunity for us because it was actually a community where we could contribute code back, where our expertise in doing something we could actually have longevity in how things were going. We didn't have to worry about somebody taking the tech away from us. We didn't have to worry about somebody saying, "Oh, you can't see that part of the software or change that part of the software." And it was, just completely game changing for us. We were able to jump in and participate and be part of the community because the community was defined by collaboration as opposed to a vendor relationship. And that was my first open source experience, and it was really, really a significant difference in the whole interaction.